So this is the best part of the program because we're finally turning over to the students who can tell you how it really is. So we're going to, what's first here? Gaining volunteer. So we're going to talk about different aspects. We said before there's some things your advisor can do for you and some not. And the things that not are a lot of it driven by students or the people in the program. So this is what this part of the talk is about. So this is probably extremely valuable for everyone, maybe more so than anything else, so please pay attention. And so like I said, the first part is going to be looking at gaining volunteer and leadership experiences.
All right. Hi. If you don't know me, my name's Molly. So basically what Dr. Stelzer was saying, this is basically just our perspective on it. We're going to try to be honest with you guys. I think the biggest takeaway you could have right now is that you don't want to be like a box checker, like Dr. Stelzer was saying, because admissions committees will see right through that. And so you need to be able to look at your application where you're standing right now. We're all here for a reason, right? So some of us it's GPA, some of us it's the MCAT. There's 100 reasons you could be here. So essentially just looking at your application as a whole, looking at your extracurriculars and how they fit into your story, and just making sure that your application can tell a story, because admission committees really don't want to read just a bunch of sporadic activities that maybe you did for a couple hours. So I'm going to start by talking about like the volunteer leadership experience box. We'll also have Jonathan here talking about research. We have Mike here who's going to talk about clinical experiences, thank you. And then Michael McGregor is also here, and he's going to talk a little bit about the MBA program and his experience in it, because I know that's kind of a big option that some of you are thinking about doing. So with gaining volunteer experience, really there's two big categories, right? So you've got your non-clinical volunteering and your clinical hours. Non-clinical can be anything, serving at a food bank, going to the Ronald McDonald House, homeless shelters, picking up trash on the highway, whatever you want to do, that's cool. Just be enthusiastic about it. If you really want to save the environment as a person, that's great, go pick up trash. You can write a whole story about that. I personally volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House because I've had family members who have had to stay at one before. It's something that I can write about, it's something I can talk about, and it's also something that means a lot to me. So when I go and volunteer there, I actually enjoy it. Clinical can be anything from, volunteering in a hospital, volunteering at a nursing home, hospice, working at the free clinic. There's 100 opportunities around Cleveland. Again, pick something that means something to you so that when you go to write about it, it's not just, for 2 hours every week, I volunteered at UH picking up wheelchairs. It was helpful because patients need wheelchairs. But that doesn't mean anything to them. That doesn't help them at all. They know why patients need wheelchairs. They probably had to go get them themselves sometimes, etc. It's, if you played a sport in college and you really miss it, you can go find 100 opportunities to volunteer with youth leagues around the city. I like to run. When I was an undergrad, I did Girls on the Run, and it was super meaningful, super fun, and it was really a great experience for me that I can talk about in my application. And you don't do it for the application, but it's really helpful to have something to talk about. It doesn't have to be glamorous. You don't have to save the world with it. It just needs to be something that you feel you're helping and you can explain why you're helping. Sometimes when you're looking at applications and people are like, I have 17,000 volunteer hours. That's great, congratulations, amazing. But what does the rest of your application look like? And were those quality hours, or were you just going for the quantity? Because again, medical schools see through everything. Admissions committees see through everything. When I interviewed this year, I got very specific questions about my volunteer experiences because the school that I was interviewing at has a very large emphasis on serving the community, right? We all want to go into a health profession. Maybe you want to be a PA, maybe you want to be a dentist, maybe you want to be a doctor. Regardless, you have to work with people, and you have to enjoy working with people, and you need to be able to show that you enjoy working with people. You can't be a jerk. You have to really be able to understand that this is a people profession. And you show that through your community service and through your volunteer work. And when I say volunteer work, leadership experience falls into that too, because as a leader in a volunteer field, or a leader anywhere really, you are helping people, you're getting something across. With leadership though, it can be a paid experience. So especially for us, a lot of us are going to be going to schools that really emphasize altruism, being able to help others. We're not necessarily going to be going to Yale, right? I don't mean to name drop, maybe one of you will. Congratulations, that's amazing. But the majority of us are probably going to be going to schools that really have a more holistic approach to their application process, and they really value these types of experiences. And especially on your secondaries will ask you about your most meaningful volunteer experience, or tell me about a time where you feel like you were helping someone. Or they word it in very creative ways, but what they're getting at is what kind of service has you done and what has it meant to you. It also it allows you to learn skills like leadership, teamwork, communication, all of those things. When you go and look at AMCAS, they have I can't even remember what they're called. It's been a while since I looked at them, but they're the 16 attributes that they're looking for in their applicants, and it's leadership experience, communication skills, written communication, oral communication, things like that. And so if you can take those different aspects that they're looking for and incorporate those into your activity boxes or incorporate them into your secondary applications is really helpful. I even had a secondary this year that literally asked me, of the 16 attributes that we're looking for in applicants, which two define you the most and why? Just straight out asked. So I guess the best way to go about it, in my opinion, is really to figure out what you like and what you miss doing. So for me, I missed being able to run all the time, so I found a way that I could. Things like that. Figure out what fits your morals, what fits your values, what you're interested in, and Google it. There's 1,000 different organizations around Cleveland. And once you find something you're interested in, start sending out emails or calling people. I know that calling people can sometimes be awkward. You have to do it. You have to get used to talking to people, so it's great practice. And then also, you can fill out applications online at some places. So UH has an online application. I think the Cleveland Clinic does too, places like that. And it's usually pretty easier to get involved with volunteering versus a paid leadership type role, because people are always looking for volunteers. So that's usually a really good place to start. And it can sometimes turn into a paid opportunity too. So we're not going to do questions right now because we do have a roundtable on all of these. So if you have questions, try to hold on to them, write them down. I don't really care what you do with them, just remember them. So you can ask people in the other room. We'll have a lot more people that are able to talk and answer them at that time. But right now, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and he's going to talk about clinical experiences. Do you want your talking points?
I got my own. Sorry. All right, how's it going, guys? Sorry, I know it's a long day, so I will try not to be repetitive. Dr. Stelzer covered a lot of the main talking points, so I'm going to try to give kind of a personal anecdote to it from an application or applicant perspective. I applied this cycle. So to give you some examples that hopefully weren't already said, like scribing, a nurse aide, EMT, clinical volunteering, hospice assistant. It covers also the clinical volunteering, like she said, so a lot of it falls into the same clinical experience. And the point in general is that you want to be able to say, I know what this doctor does, I know what every type of doctor does, that kind of thing. Not just, oh, I can write down, I really want to be a doctor, but if that person reading it sees, oh, you only have 20 hours of shadowing a couple doctors, they're going to be like, this isn't adding up. You kind of have to have more, not just time, but like they said, in-depth experience and be able to talk about it. And so my personal experiences in college, I volunteered at a children's hospital over 3 years, kind of consistently, like once a week, kind of built a relationship where I would mostly honestly play games with patients. And as funny as that sounds, it would get their spirits up. At the end of the day, they're still kids and they want to feel like, normal kids, and you want to have fun with them. And so it was as much a break for me as it was for them. And so that was something that was really meaningful for me because I think I want to go into peds And that was a big experience that it started off as like a semester, and it just kept going all the way through after I graduated. And then in addition to that, I went on to 3 international service trips. So that kind of gave me more of a wide range of people that were different than myself, because you want to be able to show that you can relate to everyone. You don't want to just be able to relate to that one, subspecialty or whatever it is. And I also just I scribed and different things like shadowing. But my main point was that when you go through the application, your MCAT and your GPA are huge, and they're your right and left leg, but they really only will come up in that primary, meaning that they're very cut and dry. They're going to know this is what you can do and this is your potential academically, but your clinical experience is going to come up at every single step of your application. So out of the 9 schools I applied to, every single one of their secondaries required writing, and every single paragraph had something to do with one of my clinical experiences or one of my volunteering. And then out of my 3 interviews I've had, all 3 of them asked about my international service trips, and 2 of them asked about my children's hospital volunteering. And one of the ladies I remember specifically, to give you an example, I sat down and we were talking, and she mentioned something, what is your volunteering like? And I said, I didn't know if she knew my application as well as maybe some of the other interviewers. And I said, I went on 3 international service trips. And she immediately knew, you went to Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. Like, she knew my application front and back. So you kind of have to be prepared to be able to talk about what you've done, not just, I did that. That might have been 3 years ago for me, so stuff might get hazy, but you want to rehash it. And like they said, you want to keep going with those clinical experiences and build on that. I would like to think that all mine are a little bit different from each other, so I kind of got a perspective of a lot of different things. But I mean, that's pretty much all for the clinical experience, but the main points are that there are things that come up a ton right after, like that 3rd point, right after your GPA and MCAT. The interviewers, they're not going to say, I see, you got a 5 whatever, that's good. That's the end of the discussion. What else are you to say about that? Upward trends are one thing, obviously, that are great, but every single question I got was related to clinical experience or related to a shadowing or a volunteering. So yeah, hopefully that helped a little bit.
Hi guys, my name is Jonathan. I'm a 2nd-year student here, for those who don't know me. So I'm here to talk about research. I haven't applied before. I didn't think I had the undergraduate GPA, so I came into this program, did my best, and I haven't applied yet. So as some of my colleagues have spoken, they have applied, they've been interviewed, they know what it means to be asked questions about certain things. I haven't gotten that. However, I've had some research experiences, and I'm currently doing research here at Case at UH. So I'd like to share some of that with you. I think Dr. Stelter did make a very firm point when he said that it seems that research is really on the bottom of the criteria list for certain schools or for most schools. However, I'm an international student on a visa, which means that I can only apply to certain schools. And almost all the schools that accept international students want them to come with some research ability. Because the research we do would give the school some prestige and name, blah, blah, blah. So for how that works, I need to have some research in my back pocket. So that may be different for you if you're not an international student and you can apply to any kind of school. So very quickly, there are 3 kinds of research that for our purposes I'll talk about. There's basic research, where you're looking at fundamental stuff, you're looking at amino acids, nucleic acids, really molecular stuff in a lab. A lot of times you're pipetting using little tubes. I did quite a bit of that in undergrad. And then we have translational research, where you take those fundamental principles and then try to find some clinical correlation or connection with them. That's what you'd mostly find, I think, in our biophysics department and some other places on campus. And then there's the clinical aspect of research, where you're not in a lab, you're not pipetting, but you're paying attention and investigating the gaps that exist in patient care. And so there are certain times when, as physicians take care of patients, some things have been done for 50 years, so they keep doing them. And then there are others where we start asking some big questions. And so, for example, if someone has, oh, I don't want to make this complicated, but maybe what kind of medication they give patients. There's dual antiplatelet therapy, for example, which means that instead of giving someone just aspirin, we'll give them aspirin and warfarin, right? So those two drugs would help anticoagulate their blood so they will not have a heart attack. However, now there's a question like, do we need both, or is aspirin just enough? So some of those questions are things that clinical research is going to, and that's what I'm doing now. So I think one of the big questions here is, are you interested in research? If it's something you're interested in, then I think I would bring value to this conversation by telling you that it's hard to find research at Case. Like Case Western Reserve University has a big name, but you cannot just waltz into any lab. A lot of the PIs are hesitant to take students because they don't know your rigor, they don't know your academic ability, and so they're reluctant. And so finding a research position on campus, you have to be proactive, you have to be persistent, and you have to know what you want from the experience. Later this semester, the vascular surgery lab where I have the opportunity to do my research would be opening up applications for all of you to apply. And I would say, don't just send us your undergraduate resume, like go to the Case resume clinic, clean up your resume, do something meaningful, and then apply. But with all of this, I want to say that Dr. Stelter has made it clear where research falls on the list of what people are expecting from you as you apply to medical school. So please bear that in mind. So I think a little personal anecdote, and I'll end with this, is that coming to Case, I'd done a full year of undergraduate research, well, a year and a half. I thankfully published a paper with my PI in undergrad. It was a great experience. A year after that, I did some internship in rural Kentucky with a physician and nurse practitioner. Whilst we were there, her patients who were chronically ill with diabetes, we read a paper published in Germany that talked about how whenever you create a support group for patients with diabetes, their A1C drops. And so we thought, well, in rural Kentucky, where we don't have a lot of physicians just readily available, could we create a support group where patients with diabetes would come together and support each other and taking medication and doing all the right things? So we established that group in 3 months, and I had to leave to come to grad school, so I don't know if their A1C dropped after 6 months. But that experience was very meaningful for me. So coming to Case, I thought, well, I would like to know how to provide that kind of data so that other people can use. I found research as a means of collaboration. So again, as an international student, I think a lot about what it would mean for me to serve in another country. And research is a point of collaboration, which means that if someone lives in Ghana, where I'm from, and they want to do something, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just literally go online, find a research paper, see what they did, see the outcomes, and then try that with your patients. And if the results are looking left instead of right, you can write your own paper and publish it for your neighbor in Guinea or Togo or South Africa, right? So I saw research that way, and that was my motivation for looking for clinical research here at Case, and I thankfully got into into a research lab. So that's my story. That's how research fits into my goals as a physician and my understanding of what I need to do to be competitive as an international student. And so I think the big takeaway is, if you love research, you're curious about the world, you really want to know how we think ACE inhibitors are great, then perhaps you should be curious enough to join a lab that investigates that. But if it's really not your thing, and maybe someday you'd be interested, but for now the curiosity is not there, as has been stated today, maybe you should wait when you get into med school, then you join a lab, right? So I hope this is helpful. We'll be having a roundtable session as we've been told by Molly. If you have any questions, I will gladly answer them. Thank you.
You're fine. Hello, everybody. I'm Michael McGregor. I'm a second year right now. I found out like 20 minutes ago that I was doing this, so wrote a few talking points real quick. So for the MBA, or MS MBA, dual degree, since there's only 3 pre-dental students in your guys' class, it's largely not relevant, I dare to say. I would consider it if you were thinking about changing professions, or if you're not sure about medical school or PA school or whatever you guys are going to, then it's definitely a good fallback option because it's well respected in the industry. But in regards to how much value it has from medical schools, dental schools, anything like that, they don't value it nearly as much as like getting A's in science classes. I'm personally pre-dental, so that's why I did it. But if you are interested, I'll go through a little bit of the curriculum for it. So you do the normal economics, accounting, finance, leadership, marketing, business, all of that stuff. Really interesting. One thing that is a bummer is you have 8:30 classes every day of the week. And that really gets old fast because, well, I don't know when your guys' classes are, but for us last year it was 10, I think. Yeah, 8:30s are rough. You have group projects, so also very inviting for those of you that love those. I'm sure there's a lot. One thing that is cool about it is you work with, for projects in class, you work with companies in both local and non-local, whether it's Cleveland Clinic and healthcare or various like startups that are in the area. So that actually is really, really interesting to get hands-on experience with that. You get to network with other people, and this doesn't seem as helpful for getting into professional school, but it's nice for once you would be in there because you see a different perspective of things from like healthcare workers. So the majority of healthcare people are doing it because they want to help people's health, where it's hard to understand, at least it was for me, that a lot of people don't think that way. So that was a big adjustment for me, but it's a good learning experience to see the other side of it and be able to work with people on it when they have different priorities than your own. But again, for me, I'm doing it because I want to be able to run my own dental practice eventually. So that's why it's relevant for me. For you guys, unless you're planning on going into like hospital administration or something like that, or the 3 other dental people, I don't know where you guys are, but it's also relevant there if you're trying to do private practice, or if you're looking for a career change or not sure about professional school. Beyond that, I don't have any talking points. I'll be at the table so you guys can all ask any questions you want, but I know we have to wrap up now. So thank you guys.